Yo, people, welcome to another episode of SAS Football. Welcome to the channel. You're here with your host, Safu and Sniper. Fresh off the Champions League games, fresh off the Newcastle drubbing, fresh off the Arsenal drubbing in France and Lens. With that, welcome to my co-host, Safu. How are you doing? How has the return to the Champions League been for the Gunners?
You know what? It's not a bad intro. Some teams are not in the Champions League, but you don't have to go that far. I mean, it was a bad result. Doesn't mean it's the end of the Champions League. Doesn't mean we're not going through yet.
Doesn't mean you're not
Yet
winning the Champions League as well this season.
doesn't mean anything. It's just one result. First loss of the season. Let's not look too much into it, but we'll get into all of it. But I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Yeah, I miss being in the Champions League, miss watching my team in the Champions League. At least we have like the two trophies to keep me warm while we stay away from the Champions League.
Yeah,
But
it's fun.
yeah, finally got a victory over the weekend. It felt so long, so three. I forgot how it felt. 3 points, how it felt to get 3 points. The Ukrainian Bolt is up to speed in the league. No 007 chance here. So
It's past 007. It's been 6 months. Let's be
listen,
serious.
he got an assist last season. So he didn't. He was never a 007. So we'll leave it at that. But yeah, people, please like the video, comment, subscribe, all those things, and we're gonna get into it. I think there's only one place to start with everything that's gone on. I think in this episode, what we want to do is maybe touch on the weekend's results, and talk about also the Champions League games that have just ended about 45 minutes ago, an hour ago. But I think there's only one place to start. It's um, the Liverpool Spurs. There's been a lot going on in the media. Jurgen Klopp asking for a replay of the game. What do you make of this? Where do you stand with all this that has happened? What do you think is where's your head at?
Look, I think it's just something. I think this is only becoming a big issue because of how bad this decision was.
Yeah.
Look, it had nothing to do with the technology, nothing to do with like VAR as a system. This has basically come down to incompetence of refereeing in the Premier League, which has been there since you and I can remember. So this is not something new. Now, for Klopp to come out and ask for a replay, ask for these like statements out by Liverpool, like this is not going to change anything. What is this going to change? For me, I just don't understand it. They have to just take the result and move on. It's not like they were gonna batter them. They had 2 red cards and deservedly so. I don't think they can complain about any of those red cards. The goal was unfairly ruled out, but at the end of the day, you get decisions for you, you get decisions against you. If you go through the VAR charts of all the teams that have errors against them, that the VAR came out the next day and apologized, or same day and apologized. Look, it happens to every team. I think Liverpool have had the most VAR decisions for them, if you take in total everything. So, and Spurs, I hate to say it, but they've actually had the least decisions go for them. So I think it evens out. I've said this from our first episode. The VAR decisions even out over the course of a season or 2 seasons, however you want to look at it. The thing is, there's gonna be mistakes in the game. These referees are incompetent. The only way they fix this is by getting either new referees, maybe start like a referee league where you get referees either like demoted, promoted, salary cuts, wage cuts. That's the only way I see them actually progressing with the referees. But at this point in time, I don't see the Premier League going to take any action on them. So at the end of the day, if this result goes against you, just move on. You don't have to cry.
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit on a lot of the points that I wanted to make. The first thing I will say is I think that any talk of a replay is a little ridiculous and bizarre at this point. It's a little nonsensical. Um, I just think it doesn't make any sense. And you're right. Liverpool, I believe Liverpool have had 9 points in their favor last season due to VAR decisions in total, and that's the most in the league. last season. So, they've had their fair share of decisions that have gone their way, whether they were right or not. Let's not forget the League Cup final last season against Chelsea. There were some dodgy offside calls there. So look, I think this has obviously been a very terrible decision, bias aside, but you have to move on from it, and the Premier League has to learn. What I do want to touch on a little bit is I'm not sure if you had a chance to listen to the live transcript that they released.
Yeah, I listened to it.
My biggest takeaway from it was that we had those technicians or those technical assistants who said numerous times the game has to be stopped.
Yes.
And someone kept saying, I'm not sure who it was, it might have been the fourth official, kept saying that they've already restarted play.
I think it was a VAR. Can't do anything.
Yeah.
Restart.
So my point, so the point that I want to make is my biggest issue with all of this was is that they realized that they made a mistake. Like there's a mistake that has taken place. They've realized that. That's first check number one. Check number two is I feel the biggest issue here was that there wasn't a strong personality. There wasn't a leadership. There wasn't a leadership role in there. And that's a little alarming and concerning for me. Like someone with a strong personality, and I mean, you're in the biggest league in the world, the most money in terms of like license revenue, TV revenue. So you have to have a strong personality in there, especially in these big games. I mean, this was a big six fixture, correct?
Yes.
So someone saying, listen, stop the game, screaming it out, get loud, stop the game, award the goal. I don't care if the game has restarted. I don't care. Stop the damn game right now. And they should have stopped it. They should have awarded the goal. I don't care if it's been like 10, 20 seconds, 15 seconds that have played. Cancel that out. Give them the goal. Start the game, Spurs kick off, and move on. And this would have all averted.
I think the refs, we understand, right? Like no one's perfect. There's gonna be mistakes in the game. We don't expect them to. The reason VAR is there, goal line technology is there, is because human error is part of the game.
Yes.
I think, based on what you said, if they stopped the game, even if it was 2 minutes later, and said, listen, they called both managers to the side. They said, listen, we've made a mistake. That goal stands, and restart from where the goal was given. I think they would have got more respect by doing that and getting it right than just saying, "Oh, can't do anything, can't do anything. It's over."
Which goes back to the fact that there aren't any strong leadership personalities in the refereeing committee or this PGMOL or wherever it is.
But
and for me, that's
go ahead. No, do you think that's because they're scared to have leadership? Do you think no one wants to take that responsibility? Do you think it's because they're not given that responsibility? Do you think this comes from the top, or is this just a bunch of cowards and incompetent referees part of this whole organization?
I think there's a numerous reasons. One, definitely, I think they're scared. They're afraid to make mistakes. I think they're afraid for someone to say, listen, I decided to make this decision. I decided to stop the game, award the goal. And they're scared of being made scapegoats. An individual is scared of being made scapegoats. And then the second thing I'll touch on as well, I think, is that if it's coming from on top, then that's poor leadership at the top then, to say that they're not empowering their officials to say that, listen, we trust you, we have faith, we've selected you on these big games. We trust you to make the right decisions and come and get to the right result at the end of the game with regards to your refereeing decisions. So I think it's numerous factors. One, they're afraid, the referees, the individuals that were on the game were afraid to put their hand up and say, I'm making this decision. That second, it could be coming from on top that they're not empowering them. And third, maybe they just don't have the required personalities or expertise in these referees. And I think if that's the case, then that's pretty shocking and alarming if we don't have that quality of referees where the higher ups are saying, we can't trust you to make the right decisions, because then we have bigger issues. Then I think there's bigger issues. If the higher management, if senior leadership are saying, we don't trust you to make these decisions, and then they're scared to make these decisions, then that's a big problem. But if senior leadership are giving them the trust and then they're still not making these decisions, then we need stronger personalities. There needs to be stronger leadership. So that's what I will say. I mean, there's one thing that did come back to mind when a lot of people said that, listen, it's against the rules, we can't stop play. Correct me if I'm wrong. Brighton, Man United, I think last season or the season before, Neil Mope handled the ball.
The
He
final
blows
whistle
the
blew.
full-time
Yep,
whistle. After the full-time whistle, he awards the penalty. I
correct.
mean, that's the correct thing to do, right? That
That
was the correct
that
thing to
was
do.
right, and no one. I mean, after they saw there was a clear penalty, like yes, we bantered Man United for getting a goal after the game was over,
But it's the
but
right decision.
at the end of the day, it was the right decision.
Exactly.
So I think the officials get more respect
Yeah.
coming to the right decision, no matter how long that takes. I mean, how many times do we see a offside check or VAR check go on for like 3-4 minutes at a time?
Yeah.
They have to look at it 3-4 times before they can actually come to a decision. This one they checked in like what 10 seconds, 15 seconds. They showed the replay once and they said check complete. Let's be serious now. If I were a Liverpool fan, I would be outraged. But again, calling for a replay is just a bit too much. We've seen this is not something new. If this was something new and it happened for the first time where, oh, this was such a bad decision, then Liverpool will have all right to feel like, oh, they deserve a replay or whatever. But we know this is part of the game. So, I mean, many people will say, oh, Liverpool are going to challenge for the title. This can come back to cost them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Arsenal have against Brentford last season when they forgot to draw an offside line on a player. I think those mistakes are just as bad. Like it all comes from human error, and you just have to move on. I didn't hear any Arsenal fan. Obviously, they were annoyed, but no one asked for a replay.
No,
So
I think, yeah, I agree. I think a replay is a bit of a farce, a bit of a, I think it's more reactionary, something from Klopp and the Liverpool fan base. You have to move on. You have to take it on the chin and move on. But the referees, the PGMOL, that whole association,
it's a joke.
they need to improve.
It's an
They,
actual joke. Like if the only reason Klopp and Liverpool are coming out and saying we want a replay is the sole like decision for them to actually take more action, then I understand it.
yeah,
Look, if the statement happened and now the PGML or FA or whoever comes out and says, look, this was a drastic error, we're taking much more action and we're gonna do such XYZ, then fine. Then what Klopp did was the right decision. So
I,
in hindsight, maybe looking back, we can see that will be a good decision. But at the moment, them asking for a replay is looking a bit stupid on their part.
yeah, I agree. It's a bit extreme. Yeah, so I think we leave it at there. But overall, good result for Spurs. Ange Ball has arrived. It continues to deliver, and Spurs are looking good value for where
Look,
they're on the table.
touching on the game, if I agree, great result for Spurs.
Mm.
But if you speak to a lot of Spurs fans, they'll tell you that was their worst performance
It
out of the
was.
whole season. And
Yeah,
if I'm being honest, when Liverpool went down to 10 men, they still look more likely to win the game. It was only when Liverpool went down to 9 men is where Spurs actually got on the attack then. I think
I agree.
Liverpool are more threatening on they were more direct, more threatening on the counters with Salah up front. But after 9 men, and then obviously the way they won it, they the thing is, Spurs finally showed they have a different way of winning. They won ugly that game. So every Spurs this season is reminding me a little of Arsenal last season. Maybe not to that much quality, but showing different ways to win, which is a good sign. Whether they keep it up or not will be seen. But at the end of the day, it was a great result for Spurs. I mean, to win, to beat Liverpool, who is probably, I think, their bogey team.
Yeah, they haven't won since 2016, 2017, I think. If I'm
Yeah,
not
so
mistaken.
at the end of the day, it's a good result for them. And you can't take anything away from that. But I will say also, for the Liverpool side, Liverpool are not looking like pushovers this season. There's nothing bad to take away from a Liverpool game, bar like the red cards. Maybe I think they've had a lot of red cards this season. Maybe that was the fourth one this season, third or fourth.
Mhm.
So other than that, I think Liverpool, the way they're playing, the intensity they're showing, I think it's looking really good for them this season. and just no Champions League football is just going to help them in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, I think they are exceeding expectations, and I don't think anyone had them. They're looking likely to put up a title challenge if they keep this momentum going.
And players fit. If they keep their midfield fit, that's my biggest worry. Their midfield and defense. Doesn't seem like they can keep them fit for the whole season, but if they can, then that's another game changer.
They have a lot of firepower up front, so
Yeah.
I think that that's obviously something that not many teams have, like the luxury of that kind of firepower, and obviously Klopp getting the best out of his attackers. But yeah, let's move on. I think we talked quite a bit about Liverpool, and I think we're both aligned on where we stand. Let's get into some of the Champions League fixtures results. Um, Newcastle, where do you want to start? Would you like to start with Newcastle or you want to start with Ten Hag's Army?
Ten Hag's Army can take a whole episode, but I think we should start with Newcastle.
Yeah.
I think I expected that less. I still expected like United losing wasn't a surprise to me, but Newcastle battering PSG was actually a surprise.
Yeah, I think let's talk about it. I mean, everyone expected, Mbappe to run riot, to really make Newcastle fullbacks work. We expected PSG to come to the tune and just, dominate play,
Yep.
put Newcastle on the back foot, and it was the complete opposite. I mean, Newcastle pressed, PSG couldn't cope with that press. They were so direct running. They were what's the word I'm looking for? They overran them completely.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And they were very, very good value for the win. I don't think anyone can say that they were lucky or on another day it could have gone another way. 9 times out of 10, if Newcastle play that way, I think they blow PSG away. I mean, it was an emphatic victory.
I think also a lot of PSG was shocked because we like Premier League teams know when you go to St. James Park, we know it's not going to be easy. We know what that crowd is like. And I think when PSG just got there, they were just shocked by how the atmosphere of the stadium, like no, I don't think they expected it. So I think they were a bit starstruck. But take nothing away from Newcastle. After the first game they had against AC Milan, we were on this podcast saying, "Welcome to the Champions League, Newcastle. It's going to be tough." And then they go and do this to PSG, which is supposed to be a much more difficult opponent than.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be a straightforward PSG win. Let's be serious. I mean, we thought we didn't think Newcastle were going to cope with the likes of Mbappe, Dembele. We thought they were going to get overrun in midfield. PSG having some world-class defenders. Marquinhos arguably at one point thinking of him being one of the best centre backs in the world at the time.
Lucas Hernandez.
Let me ask you. Do you think that, you're saying that PSG was starstruck, they were shocked? Do you think that it's on the players for not being able to deal with that kind of hostile atmosphere, if you say, or do you think it was just very poor coaching and management from Enrique to set the team up? Did he not scout them well? Did he not do his research? What do you think are the biggest issues for PSG? Or do you just think Newcastle had too much quality for them? But I don't think that it's about quality.
I don't think it's about the quality because we know PSG, like on paper, they have quality. But I will say, I've said it before, I haven't watched PSG games this season, so I don't know how they're actually doing. Look, if PSG are battering every team in the league and then they came to Newcastle, I can say maybe it's not the management, then maybe it was on the players being not ready or up for the game, because if they're winning like in the league, then this shouldn't change what the manager does, you know what I mean? But at the same time, if they're not doing well in the league, then I'm looking at the manager and saying, you haven't got team up to standard yet. You're not gelling. We mentioned that PSG brought in a lot of signings this summer, right?
Eight or nine players.
Yeah, they revamped almost their whole team. So it can take time for them to all gel together. You asked me on a previous episode if I'm scared of PSG, and I said no, I'm not scared of PSG because I haven't seen what they can offer yet. And I think today perfectly showed it. It looks like Newcastle are no pushover team. They had quality on the day, and they showed that quality. But at the end of the day, like we still expected PSG to come there and beat Newcastle. Like I saw it when it went 4-1 up, when Newcastle went 4-1 up, the camera went to Mbappe and he looked around in shock. Like he can't believe this is happening. So like to me, I'm thinking he must be thinking this is such a small team and we can't beat them. But we in English fans know like Newcastle is one of like going to be one of the biggest teams, and the atmosphere in St. James Park is just electric.
Yeah, I think
So
two things I'd want to say is that one, Newcastle put on a great advert for the Premier League. Probably announced themselves in world football, or they back in world football. To say that we here, we're going to be a superpower team in the future. So that's the first thing, just showing that the strength of the Premier League. I mean, Newcastle finishing what was it, fourth last season, and demolishing the
champions of France.
of the French league. I don't
But
think
look,
we
it can also be that PSG had an off day, right? So like you have to look at this like as a whole. If you're taking just a game in general, then yeah, you can say, look, Newcastle battered them, but we can't say, Newcastle is a better team overall.
Of course
Yeah.
not.
So
I wasn't gonna even get into the fact that I don't think it's now is the time to even talk about what Newcastle can do in the Champions League.
mhm.
We have to still see if they get through the group. They still have to go to Parc de France to play PSG. AC Milan have to come to St. James. There's still Dortmund to go to. So
Look, and we
there's
know they did struggle when they went to AC Milan, right?
struggled a lot. I mean,
So
it could have been nerves. They couldn't maybe cope with the atmosphere at the San Siro, but we'll see. I think now is a little too early to say Newcastle can really do well in the Champions League. I mean, the potential is there based
of
on the
course,
performance
yes.
tonight, but I agree. Let's talk about Mbappe. Do you think he's wasting his career at PSG?
Oh, 100%. 100%. A player of that quality, Champions League winner.
He's not a Champions League player,
I
World
mean,
Cup.
World Cup winner. Sorry, World Cup winner. Um, Look, we looking at this player as generational, the best since Messi, Ronaldo. Messi, maybe Neymar too. Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar. I don't think Neymar is up with Messi and Ronaldo, but he's another generational talent. I don't see Mbappe. We mentioned this, I think, in our first episode. Actually, the first episode we had was when Mbappe was saying he wants to go to Madrid, or throwing the toys out the prem for Madrid. And I agreed. I think Mbappe deserves to be in a team that is actually a world football powerhouse. I don't see PSG as that kind of team. Especially like I don't France is not even in the top 5 leagues in Europe, is it?
I
So
don't consider it anymore.
yeah, so I mean, I think he needs to go somewhere where he can actually stamp his mark on that team and actually be in a team where that challenges week in, week out. I mean, even if he goes to Real Madrid, I mean, the only 2, 3 teams maybe that's challenging for the league is Barcelona, Madrid, and Atletico, if Atletico are still in that conversation. At PSG, it's still gonna be, it's PSG or no one that's winning the league. Let's be serious. Same thing, Bayern. I can see if he goes to Bayern because it's still a big team, and also they challenging for the Champions League year in year out. PSG are not challenging for the Champions League. They don't do it often. So, and we know Bayern is a world powerhouse team. People see Bayern and you don't want to face Bayern. So, in my opinion, Mbappe does have to leave if he wants to become what we all expect him to become.
I agree. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Real Madrid does look like the perfect destination for him, linking
Yeah,
up with Bellingham, Vinicius. I think it makes the most sense for him to go to Real Madrid, but that's potentially a conversation we'll have in later January or in the summer next year, with his contract running out, I believe.
I think
So
he signed a new deal, or
did
he's
he?
going to, because they.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's confirmed, but we'll see what happens, is my point. It's probably a conversation and we'll see what happens. But I can't imagine him staying at PSG if they, fall out of the Champions League and they don't really get to like the latter stages. So
I think he'll leave regardless, but I think he had to sign a new deal for him to even be playing in the team. Otherwise, they're gonna bench him for the whole season. But I don't actually know what happened with that
I
whole
don't think he signed it.
arrangement.
I don't think he signed it. I'm not sure. I don't think he did, but yeah, maybe we'll do some research and circle back. Let's talk about Man United
Uh,
uh, losing 3-2 to Galatasaray. Casemiro red card, another Onana stinker. I think the only shining light that we saw from the game was probably Rasmus Højlund, who looks like a he looks like a
exciting.
serious number nine.
Yep.
He looks like a serious number nine. But other than that, Rashford looks short of confidence. Um, they look like they're lacking quality up front, apart from Højlund. Um, Defense looks in shambles. The goalkeeper looks worse than David De Gea of last season. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, where do you are Man
Look,
United in a
even
crisis?
I mean, the 100% they're in a crisis. I mean, I've seen fans saying the season's over already. It's 10 games in. But I mean, he did say errors will come to an end, right? So they lost 6 games out of 10. That's the worst United start to a season ever, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, errors do come to an end.
It
Clearly.
looks like it's the Man United of old have come to an end. Yeah, you're right.
But I want to ask you something actually. Is this because I don't want to dwell on the game. Look, we go in week in, week out, we talk about how bad United are on the field. We talk about how bad Rashford is. Onana's having stinkers week in, week out. Casemiro customary red card at the moment. But I want to ask, like, is this on the manager? Is this on the players? Or I know every United fan is Glazer out. So is this on the Glazers?
I think the performances that we're seeing on the pitch, I think it's not as much to do with the Glazers. I get the frustration from the United fans. Like, there has been a lack of investment when it comes to their infrastructure, the training grounds, those kind of things. So I think I get why the Glazers are getting heat and why they've gotten heat. So I get why they want new owners. I get that part. But I think that's a separate issue from what we're seeing right now and what we've seen in these first 10 games of the season. I think there has been a good amount of players that have come in. We saw Højlund, we saw Mason Mount, we saw Amrabat come in.
Onana,
We saw Onana come in. So there has been a good amount of players. Like, he's
Johnny
got
Evans.
we saw we saw a good amount of investment. We saw a good amount of players that have come in, and they finished third last season. So we're not expecting them to win the league. It's fine. But like you said, losing 6 out of 10, they look like they might not even make it through the groups in the Champions League. And I mean, I feel like, apart from Bayern, they should be beating all the other teams. I think
Even
a
if they're
lot.
not beating the other teams, like Galatasaray at home.
Yeah.
At home. I mean, in Turkey, yes, we know the atmosphere that Galatasaray put up, but if they're at home, they can't be losing that game.
So to answer your question, like I said, I get the Glazers getting the heat, but these 10 games are not on the Glazers. These
No.
10 games look like Man United have looked lost in terms of a plan in every single game. I can't think of a win of theirs where it was, they showed their quality. They I think, which was the game where I think Rashford might have scored and Bruno scored as well. Not the Burnley game, because we talked about that. That wasn't a convincing win. There was
No.
another win of theirs. I can't remember who they played, but it was a fairly convincing win, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, it can't be that hard to find. They've only had like 2 wins this season.
They've only had 2 wins. I think it was their first win. It was
I think it was a relegation team because they played Wolves first, and then I think they played Bournemouth or someone. I think
was it the Wolves game?
no, because Wolves they got battered.
Wolves should have gotten the penalty also in the last minute that they didn't get. If I'm not, yeah. So that was the Wolves game. But anyway, my point is that it looks like whatever that it doesn't seem like the coaching is up to par. I don't
Oh,
think
Nottingham Forest.
Forest. That's the one. That's the one. I think that was a convincing win. They were
They
like,
won 3-2, but I think this Forest had a consolation at the end, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. So I think the first this first 10 games is definitely on the
Oh
play.
no, wait, no, I'm lying. Because Forest scored in the first like 5 minutes, they were 2-0
They
down.
scored, they scored in the first 5 minutes, two
Yeah,
goals.
yeah,
Then they came back. Okay, so I guess that what I'm thinking of is that second half performance to come back and win the
yeah.
game. The strong mentality. Okay, that was the one I'm talking about, referring to. But my point is that I think the manager is not getting his plans across to the players. Maybe he's out of ideas. Maybe the players' heads are gone. They're not buying into what he's coaching. Maybe there's definitely a disconnect between the manager and the players and what's happening on the pitch. So this 10 games are not on the Glazers for me. This 10 games is definitely on the players and the manager. And I think if Ten Hag doesn't turn things around, and when I say turn things around, instill a style of play, even if he goes back to what he was playing last season, the reactive football, direct
Counter-attacking.
football, and whatever it is, but I can't see this going on for much longer without change. Like this can't go on.
I think United right now are in a stage where the way of football that they play doesn't matter. They just need results right now. When push comes to shove, like they just need to get results. No matter how they do it, they can play the worst football, park the bus the whole game, score on a counter in the 91st minute, and they'll take that. That I think that's the only way they're gonna get that confidence back up, or like anything to show that okay, we can actually win games, you know. Because at the moment, when they step on a pitch, I don't think the players believe they can win a game at the moment.
What do you think? Do you think this is on the manager? Do you think this is on the players? Where do you stand? What do you think up
I think
let's forget about like the lack of investment and all those things that Man United fans have the right to be aggrieved about. Let's just talk about these 10 games. What do you think is the biggest issues for them being so underwhelming and poor in these first 10 games?
look, the biggest issue I can see, right, is we saw Man United start poor last season, right? Conceding to Brentford and Brighton
Right.
taking beatings, right? In the start of the season, but then they came back and they ended off the season really well. Man United ended off the season well. Um, and then they got their investments in. They got I can honestly say the team that they have this season is better than the team they had last season,
Of course.
right? And if they have a better team, the same manager, but now they play the style of play is not there. They're not getting results. It's not there. It's something that the manager changed for me. You can't have the same players and then say, oh, now they're not good enough. What changed in 3 months, 4 months? So
So the only thing that I can think of is that, and I think you made a very good point. So they brought in more quality. He's changed his style of play. He has Onana coming in, them playing out from the back,
mhm.
want to control the games more, try and put a style of play. And maybe, and that's not working. And maybe the rest of the team don't have that quality or don't have those traits to play this new style of football. But
Possibly.
what does he have to do, right? He has to say, like, okay, I get it. They're not capable of playing it. Clearly, we're not getting results. Does he persist with it and fear like getting these bad results? Does he have the time? Does he have the credit in the bank to persist with the style of football, implementing the style of football, whatever it is, and go and see if it's fruitful in the long term, or does he need to say, you know what, let's revert back to old, let's continue, let's save the season, salvage what's left, and what do you think? What do you think he should do?
Look, this is where he earns his money, right?
Yeah.
He can say, if he actually believes in what he's doing and he believes truly that his players can actually adapt to this new system, I would stick with it. Look, it's this is looking similar to Arteta winning the FA Cup and then having a very poor run of form, and the board came out and said, "Oh, we back you 100%." And if I'm not mistaken, today I saw the board come out of United and say, we're backing Ten Hag 100%. Our trust is with him." So it's reminding me a bit of that situation. I will say now looking back at it, Arteta stuck to his guns and his principles, and he said, "I'm continuing with this style of football, and that's it."
But Arteta had the backing of the board. The fans wanted his head. That's fine. The board backed him, had faith. Do you think Ten Hag is afforded that space? A lot of Man United fans want Ten Hag gone.
I would argue that yes, Ten Hag has the backing of the board because a statement came out today by Fabrizio saying that Ten Hag has the backing of the board. And secondly, I will say Ten Hag has more fans on his side than Arteta did when he had the board on a form.
Okay. So
So
you're saying, and
So
you,
I'm saying my basically my point is if Ten Hag truly believes that this is the way forward and his players can play this new style of football, he has to persist with it. If he has any small doubt, a 1% doubt, he needs to revert back. Because if he's having any doubts, then it's not going to be convincing to the players. The players are not going to buy into it, and I don't think it's going to work. So in my opinion, I think he has to then revert back to his old style of play, get those results, grind out results, and see if the new players can adapt to the old way, because we know that the Rashfords, the Brunos, they can play that style of football. We've seen it last season. So for me, this is on the manager. I can't see how this is on the players or on the Glazers. The Glazers, maybe they didn't give him his top targets, but regardless, he shouldn't be losing the games he's losing this season.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think it's gonna be very interesting to see what he does. I think he's a smart manager. Whether he's out of his depth in this particular job, that remains to be seen. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. I think there's one more game before international break in the Premier League. Um, so we'll see. We'll see like whether he persists, whatever he's trying to get across to his players, or if uh if he needs to revert back to something that was a
I
little.
mean, they got Brentford, so it's not an easy game this weekend, but we'll get into that.
They should win that one, I mean, at home. But yeah, we'll get into that in the later show this week when we preview the weekend's fixtures. I think we can go on and on about United and their particular crisis that they're in right now. But let's to finish off lastly with Arsenal. It wasn't a very happy return to an away game in the Champions League. So I'll take it. I'll send it over to you to get your thoughts on the game. And I don't know if your star boy might be out this weekend, but you never know. He might just show up per usual.
Look, that's the least of my concerns right now. I think Saka shows up every single game. Arteta will say he's out, but we know it's, 5 minutes before kickoff he had a late fitness test and he's starting. So I mean, I got to give him credit for it. No matter how badly he's injured, he always somehow shows up to the games. So that's what makes a world-class player. Availability is key. So I will say that. I'm not too concerned about that because I think he will show up to the game. But going back to the result, look, it wasn't the best of performances. I think for me, this one has to be on Arteta. I think he got the lineup wrong. He got the substitutions wrong. I think his game management was completely off. I've said this like multiple times. I don't see how Havertz earns that place in the starting lineup. I don't see. I saw in Smith Rowe's cameo that he came on, did more than what Havertz did in the whole game. So I just don't understand how Arteta is being ruthless with Ramsdale, but then not being ruthless with Havertz. So I'm just trying to find where's the disconnect there. And Ramsdale hasn't been anywhere near as bad as what Havertz has been for us. So I think Arteta is either playing favorites or there's a reason there that we're not seeing. At the end of the day, I'm not gonna go too much into the result. Yes, it was a bad day, but it's a away performance in the Champions League. You can have your off days. That's our first loss this season. Obviously, it's not. If you're losing to Lens, it's not the best. Like obviously
They're
results for us.
15th in the French league.
Exactly, and we were just talking about how it shows how Newcastle beating PSG is how strong the Premier League is. But then again, look at the other way around. 15th in the French league, finishing second in the Premier League last season. So that's why I say it's not always gonna be like it's not gonna be the end all be all. I think the only way to actually put this behind us is to bounce back in the next game. And next game we have is Man City at home. So I don't know how much more of a like if we can go and put in a game there and actually win that game, then no one's going to be talking about the Champions League result. Let's be serious.
Yeah.
I also do think it's just one result. So I see us winning we potentially can win the rest of the games. I think we should win the rest of our games. Um, but I mean, in our group, we had PSV and Sevilla that drew as well. So our group is not like someone's running away with it or anything like that. So we can still be that team to run away with the group.
Yeah, I don't think that this will dent your hopes of finishing the group finishing first in the group and progressing. I think this was just a minor speed bump, but I have to ask you, is it 65 million down the drain for Kai Havertz?
Yeah, well, it's 65 million down the drain. Kai Havertz does nothing again.
So
That's all I'm saying. And
how, let me ask you, I don't want to keep harping on about this, but how bad of a decision or how dangerous of a decision could it turn out to be signing Kai Havertz? I
I
mean,
think this is probably the worst decision we've made since Arteta came into the club. I see the in Kai Havertz. How long was he at Chelsea? 2 years, 3 years.
years from Lampard,
So
Lampard's second season. So Lampard's first season, a second season, then came in Tuchel, Thomas second. So
whatever it is, right? 2 3 seasons in that time frame he was at Chelsea. Absolutely no one had anything good to say about him. Look, it was either he was Chelsea's good player on the day, especially maybe the Champions League final was probably his best performance in a Chelsea shirt. But other than that, he wasn't someone to brag about week in, week out. He wasn't someone that's like elevating Chelsea to another level. He was someone that your fans didn't want. So for Arsenal to go and sign Havertz for 65 million nonetheless, that just showed that that's a decision that Arsenal in 2016, 2017 would make. So I'm still struggling to understand the decision that they took to sign Havertz when there was, I mean, I've been raging about Dominic Szoboszlai since 2017. I wanted, imagine Szoboszlai in the role that Havertz has, and it was
like the
same.
real deal. He looks like the real deal.
And I wanted him for when he had a release clause of 20 million. That I've been saying that since 2016. But I'm just thinking any other player, I think this could like cost us so badly. Because I'm thinking any other player, you could put Madison in that position, you can put Soboslai in that position, you can put Caicedo in that position, and they were all around the same price range. Maybe Caicedo obviously is much higher,
But if
but
Arsenal went in for Caicedo earlier, I think the price would have been 80.
yeah. So I'm just saying, even look, Madison was 40, 65 for Madison in that position. And I think Arsenal are winning the league.
I
I'm
won't go that far, but I think you're stronger. It makes you a lot stronger.
much more stronger. That's like I just see apparently Havertz is in the team to bring more stability and control, and I'm seeing us losing that. I don't I just can't understand it.
It's
So
I'll tell you from a Chelsea fan that watched Havertz for 3 years, it's the hope that kills you with Havertz.
you see, Arsenal fans have been going through the hope for many years, so that's
The hope,
nothing new to us.
the hope that one day someone where he'll some coach or something will unlock him, or once he starts scoring, he won't stop. He scores that that header at the end of the game to win us the game 1-0. He scores that goal against Newcastle at St. James after that through ball that from
Jorginho through
Jorginho.
ball. Yep.
So he had those moments, and you just we always had that hope and that faith that he to just turn into consistency and that quality will just shine through and he'll become one of the leaders. But it's the hope that kills you. I'll just leave it at that. But it looks like a poor decision. Like from the outside, obviously I'm not going to complain. I mean, um,
I mean, that was a great deal for you. So
great deal for Chelsea. I mean, to get rid of him. I mean, no one else. Real Madrid. I mean, we thought he was going to go to Real Madrid. I think that was fake, false. So we were, and apparently Poch was open to having him in the team this season. So it was a great deal for Chelsea. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a long, tough road with Havertz
I,
at Arsenal.
I genuinely think if Arteta can't get the best out of Havertz, I don't think anyone will be able to.
I can agree with that. Yeah, I can. I mean, I would say Pep or Klopp, but I don't think we'd ever see that. I don't think
Yeah,
they would.
I don't think I'll want him in the first place. That's the thing. So
But yeah, I think anything else, I think we covered most of it. We'll be back later this week with the preview of the fixtures for this for the weekend with some big fixtures. Arsenal and City, of course.
look out for the combined 11 coming out for Arsenal City.
Look out for the combined 11 and look out for the preview of the weekend's fixtures. But other than that, we will. Anything you want to add before we end off here, Safu?
No, nothing for me. Just don't forget to follow, like, subscribe. We're also active on the socials, so it's all in the description below.
Yeah. Please, people, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll be back with more soon.